Whatever you do, don't disturb your ancestors. Hey there, you beautiful heathen. Welcome to Iowa's Initiations. I'm your host, Matt Sargent. If you've been watching for a while, you know that normally on Fridays is when I upload videos about how to grow your own food, fiber, fuel, and medicine, and how that is such an integral part of being a heathen. And if you've been following for a while, you know that I'm behind schedule. I missed last Friday. I've been building a roundhouse, a wooden yurt for my in-laws. Winter's really crunching in upon us. I'm behind, and so I had to get the walls up. Hopefully it'll be dried in by this coming weekend, if not before the end of the month. By the end of the month is a more realistic goal. But I got the walls up, which means I have a little bit of time to film, so let's get caught up. And we're going to talk about the importance of honoring the soil and how in honoring the soil, you honor your ancestors. So let's get into it. If you watch this video, you know why I chose the name Iowa's for this channel, Iowa's Initiations. However, to briefly sum it up, Iowa's represents Yggdrasil, the mighty you that connects all the cosmos. And it shows a connection between earthly knowledge and divine knowledge from the gods. And an important thing to remember is that the earthly knowledge is the ancestral memories, because all of our ancestors are now soil. Some might say if you really want to tap into the wisdom of your ancestors, you have to be on their native soil. Personally, I don't buy into that. Our ancestors were explorers, adventurers, and they wouldn't want to give up that connection to their ancestors just because they left where they were born. By honoring the soil, you can still honor your ancestors. A chief way of honoring the soil and still providing food, fiber, fuel, and medicine for your kin, which is another way of honoring your ancestors because that's how they lived, is by growing the eco-garden. And the eco-garden is a largely perennial system that relies on perennial trees, shrubs, herbs, etc. for food, fiber, fuel, and medicine. If you watch this video about Freyr's garden wisdom, you'll learn a little bit more about succession. But the nice thing about an eco-garden is that it's a late succession stage of an ecosystem. It's a mature ecosystem which requires very little soil disturbance. Therefore, you can provide for your kin and kith, food, fiber, fuel, and medicine, without disturbing the soil. Whenever you tear up the soil, in my opinion, in my experience, to some degree, you are disturbing your ancestors. On the same coin, disturbing the soil has a lot of ecological impacts. The more disturbance the soil gets, especially the more frequent it happens, the more you set that soil back in succession and keep it from becoming a keystone ecosystem, and you keep it in early stages of succession. And so we see this throughout the country, or throughout the world, very large tillage and soil disturbance in the production of annual crops. And while this may or may not be feeding the world, so to speak, it is definitely having negative impacts on the ecosystem as well as the soil health. The more you till or plow, the more the soil gets broken up. The aggregates break down into smaller pieces. That way, when they settle, it becomes more and more concrete-like. It doesn't hold water, it doesn't hold oxygen, and it's really detrimental to the soil organisms that live in that system, and it promotes more annual growth because it's an early succession ecosystem. It's not very mature, and it can't really fully express itself. It does really benefit annual plants. And I'm not saying that there isn't a place for annual plants in the eco-garden. If you want to grow carrots or radishes, potatoes, most fruit crops, it does require some soil disturbance. However, as you plan and design your eco-garden, and we'll get more into decision-making in a design and when and where tillage is appropriate in a later video, but you want to disturb the soil as little as possible. If you walk into a mature forest or a mature ecosystem, maybe a savanna, you'll see very little signs of natural soil disturbance. So by implementing the design, the practices of eco-gardening or forest gardening, food forestry, you can provide for your kin and kith, and honor your ancestors by, one, living a life that they did in harmony with land and providing for yourself and your kin. And you can also honor them by letting the soil rest and express itself and not always disturbing it, tearing it up, and doing damage to it. I hope that all made sense to you. Thanks for tuning in. If you're not subscribed yet, consider subscribing. Ding that bell if you want to be notified of all future videos. And until next time, happy growing.